morning, Green Spring. Most of you have seen Roy O'Connor in some capacity or the other. He represents the Green Spring residents on the board of directors. He plays pickleball. He plays a softball team, so he's going to be heading up to Charlestown here. I believe it's this week, isn't it?
Next Wednesday.
Next Wednesday, so for our softball tournament. He's on Channel 6 every month to update us about the board of directors. And so today on Who's Who, we're going to learn a little bit more about Roy, we hope. And Roy, first, would you describe just what you do for us in the board of directors? I'm sure you've done this many times.
Yeah. Well, for the last 4 years, I've served on the board as the Green Spring representative to the board. And what that means is I have to attend the board quarterly meetings and represent us in terms of anything that may come up in the board duties. But the board really is responsible for the governance of Green Spring. We rely on the Erickson company to manage it, but we are kind of looking over their shoulder. Okay, is what it means. And
so you're the representatives of Green Spring. We own our Green Spring.
Yes, we own.
And you're the board that sort of governs the money that we have, right, and all the projects that go on, and watch over the Erickson Living. That's the management company.
That's correct.
Oh, okay,
yeah, that's pretty much in a nutshell. Yeah.
All right. Well, let's talk about your current immediate family. Who do you have around here?
Well, I'm very fortunate because I have 4 children, 2 boys, 2 girls, and 9 grandchildren, and they all reside
we have a picture here
in the Northern Virginia area. Yeah, this is a photo that was taken in December last year. My birthday comes at the end of the year, so we have a special celebration of my 80th birthday. But anyway, you'll see me in the center there holding a violin. And the group there includes my 4 children, my wife Lynn, 3 of my grandchildren, and then my son-in-law and his wife. But we were all down at the National History Museum, which is part of the Smithsonian. And what it is my grandfather, John Friedrich, was a violin maker.
Oh, and this was back in the 19th century.
Yeah, he came over to this country in 1883. Okay. But he and his brother had a store in New York and sold musical instruments, primarily violins. He made over 300. But in the photo, they shows the violin, which is now at the History Museum in D.C.
Oh.
And that particular violin was made in 1903, and in 1904 it got the gold prize at the St. Louis World's Fair.
Do we have a picture of that violin?
Yeah, I think we have that. Yeah,
there it is.
There it is right there. And so that instrument is about 114 years old.
Oh, boy.
Okay? But it still sounds beautifully. We had a friend of ours who's a professional violinist along with us, and she played it for us. There are thousands of instruments at the museum, and quite a few, string instruments. They're not all on display, and so because we are direct relatives, they allowed us to come down and see it, and it was just an exciting day. It was very
kind of exciting. Huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
My son-in-law, who's a real musician, plays several instruments, was very instrumental in arranging that for us. So it was a great day. Yeah.
Not bad.
Yeah. So
you have 2 boys and 2 girls.
Yes.
Right? And they all live around here.
Yeah, they all live around here. We're originally from New York, where I was born and raised, but.
Oh, where were you in?
I was born in Peekskill, New York, on the Hudson River.
Right across from West Point.
Right across.
Almost.
Almost, right, yeah.
No, let's not talk about that yet. Let's talk about
we get to
your
that,
2 kids.
Right. Right, but what happened is when my children got to be really getting ready for college age and everything, the oldest girl had a friend who went to Virginia Tech and went down to visit her and thought that looked pretty nice, so she went to Virginia Tech.
Oh.
And then her sister, who was only 2 years after her, decided to follow her, so she went to Virginia Tech. And then on the boys, my older boy went to University of Virginia, and then my younger son went to West Point.
Finally, huh?
So 3 out of 4 all out of Virginia.
Yeah.
And so later on in years, I was never working in Virginia, in business or anything, but we kept visiting here more and more, so we decided to retire here.
Oh,
Okay, but that came quite a bit later.
okay.
When I,
Well, let's go back to where you were born then. Where were you born? You said
in Peekskill, which is a great little town on the Hudson. In those
big is
days, I think we had about 15,000 people in the
Oh, do
city
you
of
have that many?
Peekskill.
Okay.
Yeah, and my father, which is the Irish side of the family, as opposed to the Friedrichs, which is the German side, he was one of 8 children. There were 6 boys and 2 girls. And they all lived in the area. I mean, it was always Sunday afternoon at my grandmother's house, okay, and all the O'Connors would be there, and it was quite a tradition. But I grew up there. I went to parochial school in the grades, and then we moved just outside of Peekskill to an area called Shrub Oak, and it was a hamlet in the town of Yorktown. And I went to school out there for high school. It was a great school. I enjoyed it.
Do you have any good nun stories for us in parochial school?
Well, it was very strict, of course, but we all enjoyed it. I think I can always remember my 4th grade teacher, because she was young, Sister Kathleen, and she would come out and play ball with us at noontime every day, which was about the only one who would do that. But of course, I have myself, I'm one of 7 children. I have 6 sisters.
Oh, okay.
I'm the only boy.
6 sisters, huh?
Yes.
Okay.
So I had 4 ahead of me.
So you were really spoiled.
Yeah. Well, I kind of defend
My
that.
son says he was about 10 years, maybe 8 years younger than the oldest one. So
Yeah.
he had 2 mothers and two sisters.
Yeah.
They were 4 of my.
Well, it's true. They said when I was a baby, I would call for my sister Jean, who was the 2nd oldest.
Yeah.
I'd call her before I would call Mom. 'Cause
Yeah.
pretty busy.
That's sort of the way Wally was. Too.
Right. But it was great. And but getting back to the school part, though, as I went through, I had my 4 that preceded me, and they were all good students. And so when I came in, to talk about the nuns, they said, you're an O'Connor. You better
measure up.
Measure up.
Yeah. And did you?
Oh yeah, I did.
Good.
I did.
Sometimes the youngest like that sort of strays.
Yeah. I tried anyway. Yeah.
How about high school? Did you play any sports in high school?
High school, yeah. I went to a small school, so I played football, basketball, and baseball.
Oh.
I was captain of my football and basketball teams senior year. We played in the Upper Westchester Putnam County League, and small school in the league, but we had a lot of fun. And
You ever play Newburgh Free Academy?
never played
Never
them.
did?
No.
That's a pretty big school.
It's really funny because we were on the east side of the Hudson. We really didn't get to the west side very much.
Difficult. You had to go up to.
Bear Mountain Bridge.
Yeah.
But other than that, there was ferries at Newburgh and so on. But you pretty much stayed in that area. And in that time, northern Westchester County was pretty undeveloped. There was a lot of farms, a lot of apple orchards. We had people who commuted into the city. They'd go down to Peekskill, get on the train, and about 35 miles, into the city.
Okay, so you were athletic, and when you graduated from high school, what were you thinking as far as your career is concerned?
Well, at that time, I was very active in school, not only in sports, but also I'd been president of student government. I was in a language club and the yearbook club and a whole number of things. Just about everything I was into. And so I liked school, and I had an idea that maybe I'd like to be a teacher or a coach. Okay. So initially, after I graduated, I went up to Albany State Teachers in Albany, New York, and spent a semester there. And then I realized that I was paying for my own education myself, and I figured, well, I heard if you join the Army, you get the GI Bill.
Yeah.
So in January '55, that's exactly what I did. And then I also thought, I was only 18 and had just turned 18. My birthday's on New Year's Eve. And I decided, maybe by then I have a better idea of what I wanted to do. Because, young people change, many change their
I had similar thoughts,
vocations. And so I joined up, and then I went down to Fort Dix, New Jersey, and went through the basic 8 weeks, and then another 8 weeks of infantry training. And at the end of that time, it was interesting, without a lot of detail, I was assigned to the cadre at West Point, okay? a group of regular Army people who support the academy and its training and so on. And
right next to home.
Right next to home.
Yeah.
And it was really, you just don't know what path you're going to go. And
well, when did you decide you wanted to go to West Point?
well, I had some early idea of it even when I was in high school. As you know, you need a congressional appointment.
Yeah.
And my father and I did visit with our state delegate, and we were Democrats, he was Republican, so we didn't get too far in getting, on the road to getting one of those appointments. So I had some ideas about it because, I knew about it. It was close by. And anyway, I didn't give up on that idea after I got in the Army. I got to West Point and found that they did have regular Army competitive appointments.
And you probably had an AGT, I think they called it, high enough to get that.
Yes.
You didn't have 135 or something like that.
Well, yeah, they had a series.
120, I think was it.
Okay, I don't even know what it was in those days. Yep, but that's right. And they had told me that I was eligible to go to OCS, but there was a waiting line on that. And but I applied, and then I took the exams, and they said, all right, well, now we're going to send you up to the prep school at Stewart Field, the Army prep school, for a year, and if everything goes right, then you would go in the next year.
Yeah. Roy and I have been talking about the prep school, and we have our 2 yearbooks from the prep school on the table here, but if we start talking about it, we're going to use up all of our time, so we're not going to talk about it.
No, that's right. We could consume the whole time on that.
All right.
A lot of common knowledge.
But it was a great period.
It was a great period of time, and as a result of that, we went through, and a lot of it really helped me a lot. And I think I was a good student, in school. I'd gotten the American Legion Award in academics and things, but I really to tell you the truth, I think I coasted, and I'm not sure I really knew how to study well in high school.
Yeah.
But we got in that prep school, and they really taught us how to study. Really had an emphasis on English, math. So I did well on the college boards. And then the department, in the meantime, I did write to my congressman, and I got a congressional, what they call alternative appointment.
Yeah.
And he said, whoever gets the highest score goes in, and he appointed 4 of us.
So he was going to, we were assigned first alternate, second alternate,
right.
Principal, and so.
In his case, he said all 4, primary, first, second, third alternates, all 4 of you.
Based on your score.
And so I had that, and then the regular Army competitive. And then the Army decided which one, and I did get a regular Army competitive.
Good.
So I thought, that was good. I had earned it, and I was very pleased, of course. So that was, then I entered in 1956. And I really enjoyed West Point. I was very, very involved there. It turns out I'd never played lacrosse, but I played football. But just very quickly, I was on the plebe football team. I was about 170 pounds.
Now, was Blake still there, or had he just left?
Earl Blake was the head coach.
Okay.
And not only that, but Doc Blanchard was the plebe coach.
Yeah, I remember that.
Okay.
Yeah, I was there in '57 as a math instructor.
Okay. Well, Doc, and so we had some real good names there. But I was on the team from August till about early October. And then one day, the lacrosse coach came over, and Doc Blanchard suggested to a few of us if we wanted to consider lacrosse. It was Coach Touchstone, okay, who was a lacrosse coach. Yeah. And so we said, hey,
beautiful daughter, too.
We'll try that. Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So there was a group of us athletes. We went over, we went on the off season, learned how to play. And so I made the team. And the next year we went on to have an undefeated plebe team. In those days, plebes could not play varsity.
Yeah.
You had freshman teams. And but we had a great time. I enjoyed the sport. Ended up playing on the B squad after that, which meant the A squad did all the travel, but on home games, a lot of the B squad would be activated. So, but I really enjoyed that sport.
Did you play all 4 years in?
I played the 4 years.
Good.
Yeah, and then in the company, you're in a company. It's about 100 men in there. I liked it very much. I did pretty well, with the military and everything. I did, and I guess one of the highlights, I'll just back up on one thing. In football, one of my last practices of walking off the football field one day, and there was a group of us still in our pads and everything. There was a big Cadillac parked over there by the Western Monument when it used to be on the other position. And Earl Blake called us over. and he opened the back door of this limousine, and sitting in the back was General Douglas MacArthur.
Okay.
And so we each got to shake his hand. Okay? So boy, we were really pretty proud about that.
Yeah,
It was
I bet.
quite a high. And at that time, he was living down in New York City,
Yeah.
and he would
Now,
come
he
up
gave
every
his
once in a while.
speech, was it after you graduated?
After I graduated, yeah.
62, I think.
I think so. Old soldiers never die.
Yeah, yeah.
That was wonderful. But so, everything went on. I think the the greatest honor I had was in my first class or senior year. I was on the honor committee, and I was elected as chairman of the honor committee. And so that took a great deal of time, but it was very satisfying,
Yeah.
very worthwhile.
Yeah.
And I think all the successes I've had in life after that, I also stem from, I think, my 4 years at West Point.
Good. Well, I think I look back on it very similarly.
Right, yeah.
Now, you were on the honor committee, which was an honor
Yes.
to be on it. And would you just spend the 30 seconds on the honor committee? What was it?
Well, in those days, you went on as a junior, and you just kind of sat and observed. And then as a senior, actually served. There was 24 companies. Each company had a rep. The honor codes was very straightforward. You didn't lie, cheat, or
Cadet
steal.
will not.
Cadet will not lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate anyone who does.
Then that's the important.
And so, if there was any case, it would normally be reported to the honor committee through the company rep. It would be investigated by the cadets,
Yeah.
and then, if necessary, we'd have a trial. And it took we'd say 12 people on the court, on the honor court, and it would take a unanimous vote. Okay, in other words, it had to be beyond a shadow of doubt if the person was guilty or innocent. And in my senior year, I think we did something like 24 cases, but we did it completely on our own. And then the next morning, we usually had them in the evenings, after study period. And it was only one punishment. If you were found guilty, you had to leave the academy.
Yeah.
There was no intermediate, which was pretty rigid. I mean, when you think about it, yes.
I had one classmate who was silenced
Yeah.
during the 4 years. That's an
Okay.
unusual thing to have
Yes.
have one silenced, but he did graduate.
Yeah. But anyway, we went through, and but again, as I say, it was very satisfying. A lot of good work, a lot of lessons learned.
All right. Well, you graduate from West Point. What do you do?
Well, then I had chosen the artillery branch, and at that time, the artillery included both field artillery and air defense. So I went out to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, did the Army Officers Basic Course, down to Fort Bliss, Texas, did the air defense, and then over to Fort Benning, I went through airborne training. And then I was assigned to an air defense unit. Part of it actually to Hartford Bridgeport Defense. A lot of people don't know that, but this was called Nike in those days.
Yeah.
We actually had
Nike Ajax or Hercules? Hercules.
both. First at Ajax.
Oh, you had both of them.
And my first assignment, I had to close down an Ajax battery
Okay.
in 6 months, and then I was in Nike Hercules
Okay.
up in East Windsor, protecting United Aircraft and Pratt Whitney. That's where we were located. But that was exciting. I mean, we went through the Cuban crisis, and we're on full alert during that time. And, but it was a missile defense system that never had to be used. But we had a range of about 75 miles.
But it was a good missile.
Absolutely.
The Hercules was a.
Absolutely.
And that's,
Yeah.
And it also would have been good for ground support too, because it was very accurate in that sense.
Yeah, it was very, very accurate.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of joint exercises with the Air Force. After that, I was assigned to Pershing Missile System, Fort Sill, the first Pershing battery. And then I decided, it was really kind of like Nike, but now it was on tracks, okay? And I was young, and while I did well, and I liked the Army, I liked working with the men and being in the unit, felt like maybe I wanted to try civilian life and see how I would do there. So I decided to get out.
You got it. What'd you do then?
Well, I moved from Fort Sill back to Connecticut, actually, Torrington, Connecticut.
Oh.
I took a job with a small company, a subsidiary of General Time Corporation. They made small synchronous motors and things.
Oh.
I was an industrial engineer.
Yeah. Okay.
And so I learned all about manufacturing and the line, industrial engineering, purchasing, cost engineering, all the aspects of the business. It was only a 400-man operation, a couple hundred people directly making the product, a small engineering department, and then the administration.
That was very interesting.
It was a great experience. And at the end of about 2 years, I realized that I needed to get to something larger, a company that had more opportunity for growth, and I applied and went to IBM. And I joined IBM in Fishkill, New York, at a semiconductor plant. And
Now, that wasn't 400 people.
no, not to say the least. We, in those days, it was IBM had bought a 500-acre farm and built this whole plant
Yeah.
to make chips for their computers because you couldn't buy them. I mean, and
Now, which plant were you in?
Fishkill. Yeah.
Oh, in Fishkill. Okay.
Yeah. And
That's just north of Peekskill.
just north of Peekskill, about 20 miles.
Yeah.
And IBM had come out with the 360 system, and we were supplying all the chips for that. So it was really a technology division. I ended up as a project engineer and a first-line manager in the plant, responsible for planning all the equipment requirements for the line, and worked with a programmer to provide some programs for the planning aspect of it. And I guess that was my beginning to really get into a lot of planning. Okay, and so that was really good. I went from there to our headquarters, our division headquarters.
And that was up in Kingston?
Well, no, actually at that time, it was located in Harrison, but we had a group of pricers. I was in charge of the pricing department because internally we would ship chips to all our business. And that was located right in Fishkill, so I didn't have to move the headquarters. My boss was down in Harrison, and I did that for a couple of years. And then from there, I guess I just went on to a number of different positions. Went to corporate budgets in Armonk, handled the office products division, several others. And then all through this time, I really kind of moved over into finance because I did get my MBA at night.
Good.
I started when we were still living in Connecticut, and I finished it at IBM with some courses from Syracuse that Hartford was accepted those, towards the MBA, and that rounded out my business education that I really needed. So how are we doing now?
We're down to less than 10 minutes.
Okay, let me just jump forward a little
Yeah.
bit then.
Yeah, because you went to the international division too.
Yeah, well, what happened on that was I had spent time in the technology division, the office products division, and various management positions. And I came back, I was in a printer division in White Plains. And at that time, they decided to kind of split the IBM business into the data processing and then the other general business group, which was low-end, small products. So they wanted their own technology division for that, and I had that background. So they asked me to go there as the planning manager. So I did that. We started the division up. I then got my first overseas assignment. I joke about this. It was in Texas.
Oh, in Texas?
Yeah, because I'm from New York, and everybody said, "You're going to Texas?" Like, yeah, I'm going to Texas. So we were down to Austin, Texas, and built a very advanced technology plant to make printed circuit cards to supply internally to IBM. It was a great assignment, right from the ground up. We had the bulldozers, and I was a controller.
Controller, right, okay.
Controller and planning manager.
Okay.
So was down there for 5 years. We got it up and running in production and met all our goals. And then I came back to headquarters at group level back in New York. And from there is when I finally did get into the international.
Okay.
Go ahead. I got to a point where I used to often do management training.
Yeah.
Okay, I do the 1-hour module on finance and IBM for the marketing people. And so through that, I was had an interest in it, and I was appointed as the manager of the IBM US School in Briarcliff Manor at Pace University. Did that for a year, and then they asked me to go to Europe. So I went to Brussels, Belgium, and
This is part of the international.
Yeah, and became director of the IBM.
And you lived in Europe.
I lived in Europe.
Then you went to
Brussels.
the Pacific.
And then after that, they asked me to do the same job in Pacific. However, in Pacific, we operated out of New York, and we just traveled to classes everywhere from Seoul down to Indonesia, Taiwan. They spent a lot of time in Singapore. Okay. And,
So that must have been kind of exciting too.
it was very exciting.
Okay, well now you left IBM, you retired from IBM.
Retired in IBM.
You went to VMI. How'd you get the
1992.
job at VMI?
Well, I wrote to both schools in Lexington, Washington and Lee, and VMI.
Yeah. Why'd you want to go to Lexington?
We wanted to get to Virginia.
Okay.
And we kind of picked it out. We thought it'd be a real nice place to live.
Yeah.
So we did
Beautiful
that
place.
first, and I heard back from both schools, and they were interested. I had no idea, I had done teaching inside of IBM and a little bit at Pace University as an adjunct. So they hired me on initially as an instructor and then a lecturer in the Economics and Business Department. So I taught their business policy, which was a capstone course.
Now that was kind of different from being an IBM.
Very different.
I bet
very different.
more enjoyable though.
Yeah, because 25 of my 27 years I was in management positions. You're always, but down there I only had to take care of my course, my students, and my syllabus, and so it was very enjoyable. I did that for 9 years full time, and then retired in '01. Did a little consulting with the school after that for 2 years, and then finally really retired in '03.
And you decided to come to Green Springs.
Decided to
And
come
what
to
brought
Green
you
Springs.
here?
Well, really, our children we were in Lexington 14 years. Well, it seems like we were driving up here more than they were driving down there
okay.
as school, the grandkids.
So
get
they'd all
involved.
settled in this area?
Yeah.
Oh, good for them.
So they're all here. So, yeah, so we looked at a place in Lexington, a small one by Kendall,
Yeah.
and we heard about Green Spring, came up, took a look at it, and said, let's do it. So we
Kind of
moved
young
here.
too.
2006, came
Yeah.
here, and at the time, 69. Okay, we moved in, and Lynn's even younger than I, but they call us the youngsters for a couple of years.
Oh, I bet they did.
Yeah, but it's been great. We love Green Spring. It's a great location. So we went from the home and downsizing all that, and
Well,
here we are.
you've done a lot for Green Spring too, Roy. I mean, you've really been active here. You've gotten involved with everything, the governance of it. You were on the council.
Yeah.
So you've been involved in all of it, and I'm sure that Green Spring is much better off for you having come here early.
Well, thank you.
So we're out of time, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
And
Thank you, Ray.
it's been a pleasure. I'm sorry we couldn't talk about some more areas.